Okay, so I am so sorry that that wasn't working. Are you guys able to log on and see me now? Hopefully, fingers crossed. Because you just missed 15 of really good minutes of chat just like last week. Rats, we're gonna have to figure something out. Great, it worked. Awesome. Good. I'm glad it's loading. I'm glad it's working for everyone. Cool. All right, we're gonna breeze through this then, because I actually have to be at a meeting shortly after 5 o'clock, so I'm not able to stay any later, like we were last week. So we're gonna breeze through this section, which is really unfortunate because it's such an awesome part of the book. Okay, so just to bring you guys up to speed right now, we are talking about all of the different fights that basically the Man in Black, Wesley, we find out later, has to go through in order to get to Buttercup eventually. And we learned a little bit about Inigo's backstory, which was really cool. He came from this basically sword-centric family, where his dad was basically the most important person in his life, and his dad was murdered by the Count Rugen, we find out, who had asked him to create a sword for him, because he has a particularly strange deformity where he has 6 fingers on one of his hands, and it makes it hard to hold any of the regular swords. So we go through and we learn a little bit about Inigo, and I'm not going to talk too much about it because now we really don't have a lot of time. But the Man in Black and Inigo fight, and Inigo is bested, surprisingly, inconceivably, as Vizzini would say. So the Man in Black moves on and starts having conversations with Fezzik, and Fezzik doesn't want to be unsportsmanlike, so he challenges the Man in Black to a wrestling competition, basically a hand-to-hand combat fight in which we're looking at it and saying, like, he's a giant and he's crazy strong. Like, that is his one thing. Why would you challenge him to hand-to-hand combat? And nobody is thinking that the Man in Black is going to come out of this on top. I mean, if we objectively were looking at this, he definitely would not come out on top. But he does. He bests the giant and he moves on. But we learn a little bit more about another character's backstory, Fezzik. And we find out that Fezzik was born in Turkey to a loving family, but he was a giant, and he got picked on a lot by a lot of other kids because he didn't ever want to fight. He enjoyed rhyming, which was really funny, and so he enjoyed playing little word games, but he didn't necessarily like fighting until his parents kind of forced him into fighting because they found that he had a skill for it, and they could profit from that. So his parents kind of take him around the world, and they die while they're on their travels, having him fight all over the place. And he ends up joining a circus and is stranded in Greenland, which is his biggest fear, is being abandoned. And that's when Vizzini finds him. So we've gone through and we've read these backstories of these two amazing characters. And I want to know, we read both of the origin stories of Inigo and Fezzik in this section. Who do you like better? And which story do you think is more compelling? Which one makes you feel more for the character? So let me throw that question up on Edmodo for you guys, and I'm so sorry for the technical delay on this, but we are going to get it figured out. We're going to have some questions, and if you guys have any questions, of course, post them on Edmodo. I want to respond to them. I want to hear what you guys are thinking about the book, too. So, thank you for joining us. I'm glad that the links are finally working. We're going to have to take a look at that in the future and just make sure that everything is working out all right. Okay, so the Man in Black bests Fezzik, and he moves on, and he encounters Vizzini, who is like this stealthy, sly, fox-like character that is described as a hunchback, but having like the face of an angel. So you're just getting a lot of like mismatched representations of a character that don't really fit together into your traditional fairy tale concept of who a kidnapper would be. Like, you think kidnapper and you think like, oh, somebody that's going to be capable, and he's going to be ruthless, and he isn't going to laugh, and he isn't going to like make jokes and everything, and he's going to be strong. But then you have this character of Vizzini who, like I said, is a hunchback, but he has this beautiful face apparently. So you have a lot of different contrasts that are coming from this one character, which is pretty cool. All right, so Zach asked the exact same question. Whose backstory is your favorite? I definitely have to say my favorite backstory is Inigo's. I thought that was brilliant. And coming from the perspective of only having seen the movie, you don't get that backstory in the movie, so you're going to see that. They kind kind of glance over that. You find out that his father died, but I mean, you don't really get to hear the story behind it. And I loved getting to hear a little bit more about the story of Domingo and their friend. I don't know how to pronounce his name, but I'm going to say Yestes. I thought that was the coolest thing to hear about and learn about Inigo's childhood and how he came to be this master swordsman. So definitely Inigo is my favorite backstory so far. He's also one of my favorite characters so far because he has this strange concept of honor that really compels him to act in ways that contradict what he could be typically characterized as. So like as a kidnapper, considering somebody to be honest and to be telling you the truth isn't necessarily what you would think, but he is willing to throw down a rope to the man in black, Wesley, and pulls him up and actually keeps his word on that. So it's kind of an interesting play on his character and an interesting play on the fairy tale trope in general, which is pretty cool. Oh, it's no problem, Zach. I'm glad that you asked the question. I was taking like forever to lead up to it, but definitely Inigo. Megan says, and Zach, Inigo. Why do you guys think Inigo has the most compelling backstory? What is it about his character that you guys find to be so cool? All right. So moving on from that, we learned a little bit about Inigo and Fezzik, and now Vizzini he's going up against Vizzini, and Vizzini has this amazing wit and intellect, and he's supposed to be this incredibly smart and just kind of fastidious scholar, and the man in black actually bests him with his iocane powder. So he defeats Vizzini, and Vizzini dies. Inconceivable, right? And Buttercup is led away by the man in black, her new captor. So we have these three characters that are characterized by these singularly huge traits. So Fezzik has his strength, and Inigo has his revenge and then his skills as a swordsman. And then you have Vizzini, who has his wit and his intelligence. So we get to see the introduction of three new characters in this section. Well, not new characters. They kind of came in at the end of the last section. But which of these skills do you think would be the most valuable and the least valuable? And that's definitely according to you. So don't necessarily think in this situation. So respond to that, like, kind of from this situation. Which do you think would be most valuable in a kidnapping situation if you're like trying to get away from someone, and which do you think would be most valuable in general? So like in your day-to-day life, what would you rather have? Skills, strength, or smarts? All right, so that question is up on Edmodo for you guys. We've got about 5 minutes left. I'm so sorry I have to leave at 5 o'clock, but we're going to try to get through as much of it as we can. Okay, so Buttercup is running along with this man in black. He's not answering any of her questions. He's just telling her, you gotta keep going, you gotta keep going. And, you know, she kind of is. She's not really putting up too much of a fight until he finally gives her a rest, and she shoves him down a cliff, basically. And as he's tumbling down this cliff, he falls at the bottom, and he, you know, calls out to her, as you wish. And she realizes, oh my gosh, the boy that she might have just killed is in fact her one true love, Wesley. So she throws herself off the cliff, too. And kind of ends up at the bottom of the ravine with this guy. And then we, you know, we're kind of supposed to be surprised that it was, when it was revealed that Wesley is the man in black. So were you surprised when it was revealed? And if not, what clues gave it away that this was going to be him? So let me go ahead and post that onto Edmodo for you. Da-da. Forgive any typos. Perfect. All right, that's up there for you. So go ahead and respond to that if you would like to. Let's see if there are any other responses. Cool beans. Looks like there aren't. All right, so moving on. We have a little interlude in the middle of this section, not the middle of the section, but like 2/3 of the way through our section here, where our author, William Goldman, who we've already discovered is like this brilliant, wonderful person, lets us know that he is really disappointed that he can't include a scene about Buttercup and Wesley and them reuniting at the bottom of this ravine after they have both, you know, fallen down off of a cliff. So, little fun fact, at the bottom of that page, I don't know if you noticed, he gives a web address that you can go to find this scene. So, if you're looking at the book, right there, he gives you a little bit of information in a little asterisk about a website that you can go to find this missing scene that he has apparently written. And let me just tell you right now, that website does not exist. I tried going to it because I didn't have time to write a letter, and I, just, who writes letters nowadays? Although I'm sure they would send you a really cool letter in response. So somebody should do that. I'll probably do that when I have more time. But there is a website that you can go to have these missing scenes sent to you, and I did that earlier today, and the response that I got was actually fairly quick, and it was absolutely 100% hilarious. So if you have read the introductory pages, those pages 1 through 36 that I told you about earlier, actually in the last chat that apparently didn't work for anyone, you will know that, gosh, let me see. Check it out. Edmodo is not cooperating today. All right. So that is the link that you're going to be able to, the link that I just posted on Edmodo is what you're going to be able to use in order to access those secret chapters, or at least request them. You'll have to have an email address to have them sent to, so if you need to borrow one from your parents, ask them for permission before doing so. But they will send you those missing scenes, and it's kind of hilarious. Just a heads up, our author's characteristic humor is at play in these missing scenes that get sent to you. But one other note that we kind of talked about a little bit last week, some of my favorite parts of the story have come in the asides that William Goldman and S. Morgenstern, our fake author, are interjecting into the story, telling us about parts of the story that have been deleted, and then also kind of adding to what is going on in the scene, like saying after taxes, or, yeah, because everything is after taxes, apparently. I thought that was hilarious. But all of those little asides have been some of my favorite parts of the book. They really add to the humorous quality of the story for me. So why do you think, but it sounds like some of you really, really hate those moments in the story and kind of just skip over them because they don't mean anything for you. So why do you think Goldman keeps interrupting the story in order to insert his own thoughts? And do you think these interruptions are ruining or enhancing the story for you? Why? So that's a big question that I have for you, because I absolutely love them, but I know that some of you, and you had a discussion about this last week, definitely are opposed to the inclusion of those kind of asides from the authors. So go ahead and check out those links. Okay, so it looks like Megan was totally surprised. I'm so glad you were surprised, because that's what you're supposed to come into it as, and maybe I'm just jaded because I've seen the movie a million times. But I am so glad you were surprised, Megan. Was that kind of a cool surprise? And then because you were surprised, did that make the lack of a reunion scene between Buttercup and Wesley more disappointing for you, or less disappointing? So it looks like Zach said not really, he wasn't really surprised. The foreshadowing basically said that Wesley is a major character in the story. So yeah, definitely, there was a lot of foreshadowing that said that Wesley was going to come up at some point in this story. It is, after all, a story about true love, and Buttercup did very well tell him that he was her true love. So we're kind of expecting him to come up at some point, but maybe not this early, and definitely not as a man dressed all in black with a, like blindfold on. Not a blindfold, a mask. That thing. Okay, so another response that you guys said, for each of the different abilities, Megan said she would rather be smart, and she would least want fencing or strength. And Zach said he also would want smarts because brains are better than brawn, after all. For sure. I kind of agree with you guys. In this case, though, I think I would rather have Inigo's sword fighting skills, because that would just be so cool. I mean, like, violent, but cool. Okay, so we have, I'll take just like 2 more minutes to kind of talk a little bit about what's going on, because they entered the fire swamp, and the fire swamp is a huge pivotal moment in the book, and I'm so sad we don't have more time to talk about it. But they enter the fire swamp, and this is really where Buttercup and Wesley's trust and relationship is tested, because they haven't really had a whole lot of experience being a couple. I mean, it tells us in the book that 30 minutes after they kind of reunite, they're already arguing about things. And then they enter into the fire swamp, and they basically have to rely on each other to survive. So this is a really important testing of their relationship and their love for each other as they go through this swamp, and they encounter the ROUSs, and they encounter the snow sand, which is not lightning sand, very different things, and then also encounter all of the different fireballs and just basic swamp dangers that they come across. So what did you guys think about the description of the fire swamp? Was that kind of a cool atmosphere, or did you think that the action-adventure part of the story that came before that was more interesting? So I will go ahead and post that question up on Edmodo for you guys. But before they entered the fire swamp, well, after they had entered the fire swamp, but when Prince Humperdinck and the Count caught up to them, the Count said that Wesley must either be very desperate, very frightened, very stupid, or very brave. And while Prince Humperdinck was probably correct in saying that Wesley was a little bit of all four, or was very all four, what do you think was the greatest vary among those four? So do you think he was frightened, desperate, stupid, or brave? And let me post that question up for you guys too, because I think that there definitely is something to be said for him being desperate at this point, but also something to be said for him just being very brave right now. So, all right, we have come to the end of our 5 o'clock hour. I just wanted to give you guys a little bit of heads up. I'm so sorry that the technology didn't work out again this week. We'll try to sort through some of those bugs and make sure that everything is fixed for you next week so that we can get this rolling and get the full half hour in with you guys. Do respond to those questions, and if you have any more questions, go ahead and post them on Edmodo, and I'll be logging on throughout the next week so I can respond to anything that you might have. Definitely feel free to log on to Edmodo and post questions as you come up with them while you're reading. You don't have to log in just on Thursdays, because I definitely check a couple of times throughout the week just to see if there's anything else that's been posting. So it looks like Zach is responding to a couple of the different questions here. The greatest vary for Zach is brave, and Megan says that the greatest was very desperate, and those are definitely my top two from that list for him. I think that he is very desperate to escape, and particularly to escape with both him and Buttercup alive. But I also do feel like he is being very brave and kind of like going through all of the different challenges that he has to encounter in order to get her out of there. Okay, so next week, February 18th, is going to be our meeting. We're going to be on Edmodo and on video. Hopefully the video will work better next week. But we're going to be meeting from 4:30 to 5, like usual, and we're going to be discussing pages 219 to 288. So a slightly shorter section for you this week. Hopefully we will see you all there. Anna Wilson is going to be leading our chat, so look forward to that. And just a reminder, our movie showing is going to be happening at the Coeur d'Alene Public Library downtown in Coeur d'Alene at the end of February, on February 25th. That is a Thursday. It's going to be from 6 to 8 p.m. It says 6 to 8:30 on the newsletter, but it should only take about from 6 to 8 p.m. And we'll be doing popcorn, we'll be watching the movie, we'll be talking about it, we'll actually be having discussion this time, instead of all just kind of like running after the movie is over. So please come and join us for that. If you guys need directions to the Coeur d'Alene Public Library, hit me up on Edmodo and I will send you those directions. Other than that, thank you so much for joining me, and I hope you're enjoying the book as much as I am. Catch you next time.